Sherry Murphy for the Women's Wisdom Network. Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room with Murph. And boy, do we have a powerhouse. Again, this is Money Mondays, and we have Christina Wise. We're here to help women make better decisions with their money. Now, if you haven't heard about Christina, you must be living under a rock, because she is a rock star in the real estate industry and in business in general. She's been featured on USA Today, Apple, I'm sure you've heard of them, and I don't mean the fruit. We're also talking about Evernote and Contactually. She knows how to build a fortune even in a recession. She has done great work with multi-million-dollar companies that she's built for other people. And she decided that she was trading her health for wealth. And now she's here to tell us a little bit about how to do it ourselves. Welcome, Miss Christina.
Oh, well, hello. It's so fun to be here again. I love these Money Mondays.
Well, I do too, because in the next 45 minutes, give or take, we want women to walk away with some real clear objectives. And I would say to obliterate some of the myths that we all have about money. I'm one of 9 kids. There was just never enough. And yet we all worked harder. The message was work harder or work smarter, but that's not necessarily true. You want your money to work for you. And that brings us to debt, because in order to make money, you and I have talked about this before, you have to spend money. Now, I know you really go into this in your big program that you have called Wise Money Method. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's actually a program that helps people understand more about money. Yes?
Yeah, it's like learning the money fundamentals. The latest statistic that I've read over and over and over again, and so, based on my vantage point, I believe it to be true, is about 84% of Westerners are paycheck to paycheck. And that's regardless of income. And we believe as long as I make more money, that's the answer to all my problems. If that were true, then people that made more money would have more money. They wouldn't be paycheck to paycheck. So the statistics are telling the truth. And the truth that I think it's telling us is a couple different things. Is one, what we believe to be true about money isn't true. Kind of that common sense, what I call the common sense of money, like work hard and if you make a lot, you'll be fine. It's just categorically false. And so what that means is there's more to the money equation that meets the eye. And what I've learned for myself, and now what I teach through my Wise Money Method, the methodology for turning your income into long-term net worth and passive income, is that money is a science. It's not, there's the art of making it and who we are and how we do it, but there's a science, there's a method, there's a technique, there's knowledge, there's understanding. And we're oblivious to that. When we're really illiterate when it comes to money, then we're going to continuously make the money mistakes. It's going to keep us on that hamster wheel. And the hamster wheel is paycheck to paycheck, where every month we have to go hit the make more money button, as opposed to being in a situation where money works for us versus us just working harder for the money. So that's just it. And that's what the money school and the method that I teach is how to get off that train, off that paycheck to paycheck train or commission to commission train.
Well, and especially in an entrepreneur world, because you and I both know everybody thinks, you get to be your own boss. Oh, wait, yeah, you wind up working more hours and whatever, especially that passion doesn't pay. And this is not just for people who are, late in life. I mean, bless your heart, you've got Mace, your daughter, beautiful girl, by the way, too smart, just way too smart. But she's already learning how to build wealth at 25, 26 years old. So even if you're listening to this and you're over 50, better to start now than not. Because there's going to be one day you wake up and you're going to say, I'm just tired. It would be so nice if I didn't have to go out and make the donuts. So you've been dubbed one of the 100 most influential real estate leaders, not just women in real estate in the country. And you've done that because you've created so many multi-million-dollar businesses, but you've learned how to have good debt and bad debt. Now, we all go through that matrix where we got to have those shoes. Those Jimmy Choos are going to make us tall and thin and blonde and smart and desirable and cute, and you're still you. Right? So how about you tell us about good debt and bad debt and how to get out of it fast?
Yeah, so debt is this tricky thing. And if you're like a Dave Ramsey follower, Dave Ramsey said all debt is bad debt, and it's almost a guilt trip if you have it. And that might work. I mean, it's not a bad kind of motto to have to get started, but ultimately it's not about gaining wealth. That to really grow wealth, wealth is attached to this one word called leverage. And leverage is using debt to make more money. And I'll talk about that in a second. But really what happens is that, especially in real estate, when we can make these really high incomes, I call it the high income rich, in the sense that it makes you feel rich because you're making these big incomes. And what happens is then you can afford a lot of debt payments. So it feels like, you've got it all handled. But really, that high income rich is just a feeling, but it's really a high income broke, because anytime we're paycheck to paycheck, we're broke, meaning we're broke the end of this month and we have to go do it again and then again, and month after month, year after year. But what happens is that the 36% of Westerners, that's all of us, 36% of our income, pre-tax income, goes towards debt payments. So if almost 40% of our money is going to interest, fees and charges that come along with acquisition of debt, we're talking bad debt in this case, how the hell, after living expenses and taxes, can we ever have enough money left that's that money left, or that surplus, what I call profit in our household, that's required to create wealth? Because we create wealth through buying assets. And so that means we have to have money to do so. We can't spend it all. So what happens with what I call bad debt is that it means we're using debt to pay for the cost of our lifestyle. So when we start out and we make $50,000 a year, our cost of our lifestyle is $50,000 with the rent that we pay and the car payment that we pay, and whatever we do for fun. But then when we double it or triple it, does all that stay the same? No, what happens is we increase the cost of our lifestyle, but not by paying cash for things. We go get a mortgage that's 3 times, 4 times more expensive. We go get the 1 or 2 expensive car payments because the Honda is no longer okay. We need the Mercedes, or we need the BMW. We need to kind of look the part. We don't shop maybe at Target or at TJ Maxx. We go shopping at other stores. Our vacations, are different. And we tend to put these on cards one way or another. So we do it through a mortgage payment, meaning we go to the banks to get a mortgage payment. We go to the bank to get car payments. We go to maybe put a credit card, our first apartment or house, we're going to put all that expensive furniture on a card. And it's just the cost of our life goes up and up and up because we keep borrowing more. But it feels like we can pay it, because if we're making a couple $100,000 a year after tax, and we have an expensive mortgage payment, we have an expensive car payment or 2, and we have expensive, we can afford the credit card payments, or, all those different payments. What we don't realize is that every time that we get in more debt, it increases the cost of our life. And then we get habitualized to that. And it feels like we're doing fine because every month we're easily making all those payments.
Until you can't.
Until you can't. But that is the payments that we have to go make sure we cover those payments every month that forces us then to go have to make the money again to meet the payments. So really the bad debt, from just kind of the big picture, it's just that the reason why it's bad is because it keeps us locked in to having to make that income month after month. There's no space. There's no day off. There's no rainy day fund. There's the different things. And that works for a while until we kind of get sick and tired of feeling sick and tired of having to do it again. So in general, that's the problem with debt, is that it forces us into having to go make that income to meet the payments.
What do you say to a younger person who doesn't really have the health challenges necessarily? So you and I both know that life happens. In your case, it almost took you because you had worked yourself literally to death, which we say a lot, but you actually did that. And that's when you got the aha, the gift of, no, I'm not trading my health for wealth. And if there's a stress that goes with that, there's a stress for, every day got to get up and make the donuts, whether you like it or not. There are interruptions in life, things that just happen that if you're not prepared for it, if you're listening to this, what would you tell somebody listening to this how to start? Would you say list everything? Would you say what? Do you
Well, the
have to
first
do?
thing is just to be, I think the first thing, like a big part of what I teach in my money programs and money school, it's really about awareness, is that the cultural kind of programming and the parental programming doesn't have us aware of how money works. And so we're just working hard and living and making a good living. And there's nothing wrong with spending, but we're spending in a way that keeps us trapped. And so that's what we don't know, is a lack of awareness. So when we're unaware that 33 to 36, 37% of our income is going to interest payments alone. And if you just do some simple math in your head to realize if that's true, if we're in the norm, which is 85% of Americans that I mentioned, that again, that there's no way to grow wealth and hold all that debt at the same time. So the advice is, don't max out your debt. Even debt that's, you know, that's asset backed, like a house or a car or these different things. We're not even talking credit card debt. And we know those word on most, I think everyone hears in the real estate industry. So we know what it is. How many of our clients go to the mortgage company and buy less than what they can afford, right? The mortgage banks go and say, hey, this is what you qualify for. You qualify for $789,000 house. So what do? We go buy a $789,000 house. We're not buying a $500,000 house. And do we think that the banks care that we can put our kids in college, that we can eat good food, that we go on vacation, that we can grow wealth, that we can have other things? The banks don't care. So we have to care, and we have to do some very simple math. And I mean, this is math that we can do on our iPhone. This is math that we can figure out in middle school. And so it's not complicated math, but it's just, you know, we can figure this stuff out on our own. So that's what we need to know. And then, so that's one thing. It's like, if we're going to get rent or we're going to get a house, housing is very expensive, but we try to underbuy, is to buy to the full amount. The second thing is, like, for example, let's say when it comes to car loans, people don't trade car for cars. They trade car payments for car payments. And most Americans, again, they have at least one car payment most of their adult working life. Because when the 3-year warranty is over, the, you know, or your 4 out of 5 years payment, you're trading that in to get a new car. You can afford the payment. So we're never paying it off. So what I teach my younger students is, there's nothing even wrong with getting a car payment the first time, but get really the smallest payment you can afford. I mean, the 10-year wise, so get a 3-year instead of a 5-year. I went in, my car, I mean, you know, I follow my own advice, and, you know, I like nice cars, so I buy nice cars, but I had a Range Rover, and that thing was like it's 13 years old. I mean, I was driving it till really the wheels were going off, and it was now going to cost more to put money into it than it was worth, really. So I thought, okay, I'm going to trade it in. I'm going to finally get me a new car. I knew the car I wanted. So I go to the Mercedes dealership and buy this, and, you know, I pay cash through my whole life insurance. That's a whole another story. But I go in, and he said, well, what kind of loan do you want? And I said, well, I'm not getting a loan. He's like, what? And then he said, well, first of that, he said, would you like a 5 or 7 year loan in months? I mean, it's a 60-month or whatever,
Yeah, right.
72-month, I guess. I said, what, a 72-month loan? Are you kidding me, on a car? He said, yeah, that's pretty normal for this expensive a car. And I said, people have a 7-year note on their car? And he's like, yeah. So, I mean, that's just something, I was clueless because it'd been so long. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I got it, you know, traditional car loan. But that's it, is that then when that 7 years is up and the warranty is up, now we're trading in for the next one. So all we have to do is a little compounding. Is what if, and that's, let's say we're doing a 7-year loan, and let's just say it's $1,000 payment every month. If we didn't have the car payment, you can go Google a compounding calculator and just put in $1,000 a month, put it for 20 years at like an 8 to 10% interest rate. And that will tell you how much money you would be worth at the end of that 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Just put it in there. I did the calculation when I found out that statistic, or I read that people don't trade in cars for cars, they trade in car payments and car payments. And between married couples have one car payment for 40 years, between at least one of the spouses have a car payment, and then usually they buy the kids a car, and so on and so forth. So people may or may not have a car for 40 years, but I just said, okay, if it's a $750 lease payment, which means you never pay off the car for a BMW for 40 years, that was $500,000.
Whoa.
That means you would be worth $500,000 by putting that same 750 to work for 40 years. So it's a $500,000 car. And just think over and over and over again. And so we don't understand money and how it compounds and how it works. Because if we knew that,
Yep.
we might make different choices, right? We might not have those car payments. And so again, the advice goes back, sure, maybe get your first car and get it on a loan. Get the shortest, maybe a 3-year loan, pay that thing up. If you want to get a longer loan, make some extra payments to take that down like we can with a mortgage, and then drive the thing. And once you pay that off, now we want to put that differential we've been used to paying to our bank, into our fund, where we're going to use that money now, that we can now use that money to, buy assets. I just call it buy money to make money, as opposed to work over here really hard to continue to make those mortgage payments. So again, it's kind of reverse. It's re-engineering, one, our understanding and awareness of money, but then two, re-engineering our behavior so that we can get out of this trap that I've just mentioned. So that's a second piece of advice. I mean, I think the third one that is obvious as possible, but I mean, borrow as little as possible with, for example, student loans. That student loans are crazy. The amount of debt that I see working with clients. And, I don't say this on the call necessarily to them, but, it's 6 figures of student loan debt regularly. And in my head, I'm like, man, if they had any idea how long this is going to take to pay off, you've got to make a shit ton of money to really pay that off, but to be able to get ahead of it. Right.
Well,
So yeah, we might have to borrow to go to school, but to borrow minimal amounts, right? To really be smart about this debt thing, because we don't want to be the statistic, because now we have to pay that student loan back for 10, 20, 30 years. And all that money we can't reinvest to buy money that's going to make us money. We're just keeping the banks,
happy.
happy, right? Fat and happy.
Banks get the money. Well, one of the ways, and you and I both know this, is that I wrote as a contributing author, I wrote a chapter on the best real estate advice I ever received. And I personally didn't think I'd ever be, chosen. But the caption was, don't wait to buy real estate, buy real estate and wait. So a number of my friends, as they sent their kids to college, depending on where they were locationally, would buy a small, very small 1-bedroom studio, so that instead of paying dorm fees or rents, that they would be building equity with this place. And of course, you knew it would always have longevity as long as the school was there. And if you buy it right, it's a first floor, so you can there's so many options. But you would say, well, I want more than that. But you don't buy your forever home on your first deal. You buy something that works.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And, when we look at, so again, kind of a reframe for thinking, and how, I've done a lot of things wrong. The few things I did right when it's come to money, but I wanted certain assets to pay certain things. And so when the kids were born, some people put their money into the 529 plans, and that's a great thing. Like if you want your kids to go to college, what a 529 plan is, for example, it's like you put those monthly payments in, it's going to compound over the 18, 19 years that they're growing, so that money's compounded. It's worth this big chunk of money that pays for a portion of their college. So if we're going to have kids and we know we want to educate them, and we know the education's expensive, we might do that. Now, I did a different form of that. Is I wanted to buy a piece of real estate, really, that was going to accumulate and cash flow and things. And then I used the money from that to kind of reinvest and put it. And so my real estate paid for the cost of both my kids to go to college debt free. I have no debt. They have no debt. But ultimately, it's just kind of that pre-thinking and the pre-planning that, they're pretty lucky in the grand scheme of things that they're able to get, through college without that. But the idea really here is to understand the cost of debt. There's the cost, there's the literal cost of debt, that the interest and fees and charges is really expensive. 33 to 36% of average American income, pre-tax income, is going towards just the interest charges and fees, right? I mean, think about that. So we want to minimize that. Now that's just debt in general. Now bad debt means we're using debt to buy a lifestyle we can't afford. And that's when we get in credit card debt, right? So, I mean, some people have it, some people don't, but ultimately we do, that's high, it's very expensive debt. And we need to pay it off as quickly as possible because that, again, it robs us. It's not a moral thing.
No.
But what it is, it's robbing you of the ability to use that same payment every month that you could otherwise be doing to buy your wealth and your financial freedom.
Well, and you haven't even mentioned the mental stress and fatigue of having to pay bills. But wouldn't you recommend, and I've just noticed this a lot, maybe because I'm paying attention because we're doing these great every Mondays. By the way, it's every Monday for the next several Mondays, starting at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time, so that everybody can kind of get it. Is if you look at the interest rate you're paying on a particular card, and you can get transfers for zero debt, but then you can't charge anything, so that you have zero interest for maybe even 10 months. That would save a lot of cases a lot of money. And if you just bank that money to pay off that loan, you pay it off faster, because at the end of the day, even rent is like a mortgage note that is 100% interest. And so if you start small, and I think that one of the things that you bring up that's so smart is that nothing's too small. You say, well, it's only $50 a month. Okay, well, that's $50 a month times 12, right? $600 a year times 10 years. I mean, and not to even include the interest on that. So I think one of the best things you say is start with something, because you start getting fascinated. When you wrote your book, Falling for Money, isn't that in there?
Yeah, so and I share just kind of a method for paying off debt fast. And just, very simply, to have debt, if we first, again, this is consumer debt. This is different than business debt that a lot of times I help people structure their books, and people have business debt on their personal books that we need to move that to business debt. And there's a reason why. But really, any personal debt, really probably outside of our mortgages, we want to list it. And I list it based on the smallest amount of debt that we have, like the balance. Start with the smallest balance and then list it out. And then write down all your payments next to it, the monthly payment. So you have your balance, start with the smallest amount, and then your monthly payments, and list that out. And then make it a goal that you're going to pay off that lowest balance first. Some people say do the highest interest rate. I say do the lowest balance, because you can start getting that feeling of each time something's paid off, it feels really good. So, even if you only have $1,000 on one, and it 15 or 26%, but you have $10,000 on another at 10%, still pay the $1,000 off first, because it's going to feel so successful. And just talk about that anxiety and that stress, just you get to cross it off the list. What you do is that now find extra money and pay additional, like double up that payment. So if it's a minimum payment, so if it paid minimum payment on all your cards, and if it's $150 minimum pay $300 a month, and double it up and pay that one off as quickly as possible. And you can look on the charts to see when it could be paid off. You can, what's the name of that? The chart that tells you when. Amortization chart. Yes, thank you. So you can get that from your bank. You can find it online. And then now you were used to paying $300 a month. So if the next payment were $250 a month that you've been paying, once the first one's paid off, now allocate that $300 to the $250. So now you're paying $550 towards that second one versus a $250. And you just keep doing that. And that's called the snowball effect of paying it off. And so it's a really rapid way to start paying off. And you can automate it so that you're just setting it, you're forgetting it, you're getting the stuff done. When the next one's paid off, you do it. And you can very intentionally get your debt paid off pretty quickly, outside of some of the bigger things. So those are some simple things to do, but it really comes down to, you have to have the desire to become debt-free, because you understand the cost of it and what it's cost, like you talking about emotional energy, stress, anxiety, let alone, the hard cost of it. Now, there's also the good debt, and we want to not put all debt into bad debt, but good debt. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. That's mostly who I work with is kind of self-employed and entrepreneurs. Now, I see them using debt in their business and getting into a lot of business debt because it's write-offable and it's a business. Yeah, we do need to fund our businesses, but we do, have to be very careful that anything that we borrow, I like to think of it that if you're putting your own money in, you need to think of it the same way as if you were going to go pitch your business to raise money elsewhere. And if you're pitching your business or some aspect of your business to a company, to an investor, is the investor going to just say, hey, just spend the money however you want, we'll keep our fingers crossed if that's going to produce a return or not? No, you're going to have to give that investor a complete, breakdown of, I'm going to borrow this amount of money, I'm going to use it to pay for these things, I expect to get this type of return, I expect to pay it back in this amount of time. So we need to treat ourselves like that same investor. And that's what I noticed that a lot of, entrepreneurs don't do, is they just keep getting into more debt to try to fund the growth of their company or the startup of their company without a real strategy in place. So but if we do that prudently and wisely, you can, I funded my first business on a credit card. If we don't have other places to go, there's nothing inherently wrong with credit cards. It's just our misuse of credit cards. They can become very handy, right?
Well, and think about that, especially in a commission business. I mean, some days you'll have a $40,000, $50,000 month, and sometimes you get $4 a month. And so, yeah, credit cards can help you. More importantly, though, I think it's the intention of paying attention to what you buy. I will just tell you that somebody quoted that just look around your house and everything that you have is where your money went. And I understand that, if something breaks, water heaters break, especially functional obsolescence happens in homes, and it's usually unpredictable. But like you said something, and I want to make sure everybody heard this, and that was make it automatic. So even if you said for every brokerage check or every commission check or every check that came in that wasn't reimbursement, you took 20% off and just put it in a savings account, at least you would have some control of cash that is unconscious, because you will reduce how you can spend if you don't have the money, right? I think we talk about real estate and everybody's like, oh, well, there's going to be this bubble. Just an interesting statistic working with the data advocates, which is another group that I work with, that it is predicted that that over 50%, well, actually higher, it's much higher than that, but I don't want to quote the amount, but over 50% of the rentals going forward, in the next 2 years, will be owned by corporations. And, corporations aren't people, they're not landlords. So they don't really care if you can't make the payments or not, you're out. And so I would say the American dream is something we fight for. Any kind of real estate will work while you don't. And if you can do it, even if it's a consortium of like 2 people and you're very clear about it, you need to get into some real estate to help you have that security that you have someplace to live, because you and I have both been there where it's questionable. But tell us, we've got a few minutes left. Tell us about the program Wise Money Method, and what, if somebody said to me, what is that? What would you say?
Well, it's called like the Wise Money School, and Wise Money Method is a methodology, a technique, a money technique that I teach. And I teach you like everything, we're kind of a lot of how we're thinking, that what's obvious about money is not obvious. What's obvious about wealth is not obvious. So I teach the fundamental laws and principles of money. First, foremost, we talk about mindset and awareness to see how our current beliefs and behaviors with money are keeping us trapped, and we unravel that so we can rebuild it. And then I teach you how to turn your income into wealth, how to pay off your debt, how to store cash, how much money of every single check needs to go these other places, so that it's an exact methodology for how to get off the hamster wheel, like for reals, and to really build towards financial freedom. And I have this saying that I coined that I won't say here, but we're on one of 2 trajectories. We're on a trajectory that I call financial eft. If we continue to do what we're doing, we're not going to wind up financially where we ultimately want to be. And it's just going to be stuck until one day, we just want to like throw our hands up.
Right.
Yeah, the other one's the trajectory of real financial freedom. And if we want that, if we want to be on that trajectory, we have to turn the ship. We have to change the direction and focus with our money. And there's, there's I mean, I'd say 85% of Americans are financially illiterate. And it means we don't know what we don't know. We're unconsciously incompetent. And we don't know that we're going, going into the direction of a dark abyss, financial abyss, unknowingly, just thinking, man, I just got to work harder.
It's life by default instead of by design. And that's what we're talking about here. So I know you're starting in October of this year, October 3rd. Am I correct? That you'll have a new class?
So that's where the new class will start. We start as a school. It's like going to Money Night School. I've designed it. And so it's super fun. And we all start as a class and we learn money together. And it's a very fun process. And it's something like, if money has been one of those things that we've just never really taken the time to learn, now's the time. But what I recommend a couple things is, number one, is I have this quiz. It's the 10 financial questions that kind of real estate professionals can't answer. The 10 financial questions that real estate professionals can't answer, but should, if they want to get off the roller coaster, the commission roller coaster. And so that's a quiz. It's wisemoneymethod.com/quiz. So that's a really fun quiz just to get a grade and kind of see how you're doing. If you get 100%, you don't need me. You don't need the school. You've got money figured out. But if you really have below, like, a 70%, that's really should be a wake-up call that there's a lot to learn, because I can't answer these questions, because you have to be able to answer these 10 questions if you want to be on the financial freedom trajectory. So that's that. And then, that's a fun quiz, and it allows you a way to contact me. And then with every call, I'll say, if you can just want to set up a 45-minute call, then just christina.com/call, and it gives you my calendar. And you can just set up a call, and we'll just do a money chat. Super fun, really easy. Don't let any of the backstory keep you from making the call. Exactly. And I'll answer some money questions. I'll give some advice if I've got some advice to give. And if the money school seems like it's a good fit, I'll tell you about it. And if not, I'll point you in a direction I think would be a good next step.
Isn't it just funny that her last name is Wise? It's not Bachikalu, which wouldn't have the same resonance, but it is Wise, spelled money, MONEY method.com/quiz. And that'll get you started. And again, how many weeks does it roll?
It's a 12-week class. And we're going to completely transform your money mindset and all of your money behavior. It's kind of akin, like, if you're sick and tired of just feeling like, crap,
yeah,
and you want to finally kind of get your health in order, and you want to join, get a coach and join a gym and go through 12 weeks to kind of relearn everything and step on the scale and get things moving in the right direction. That's what this is for money. It's really learning, like, in 12 weeks, we're going to get financially fit, and we're going to, get.
It just does so people could schedule. It's an hour. Is it an hour?
Well, the program is 12 weeks. Is that it's online in the sense that I'm your money professor. So you'll watch videos of yours truly teaching all these things about money. And then it's usually a couple hours a week of homework. Like, you're actually it's applied learning. So you learn to apply. And then we do a weekly call that's live and fun. And I teach some more on that type of thing. So it's just a very thorough, transformative, fun learning, it's money awareness.
And this is the time to step up. We've got threats about recession. We've got all these things. And Lord knows you and I particularly have been through horrific markets, fabulous markets. It doesn't make any difference. Under all is the land, but under all is the data. And the data is telling us it's time for us, especially if you're a woman and listening to this, and not that men aren't invited, but for Women's Wisdom Network, having life by design is a great relief, because you make the decisions for the life that you want. And if you have a family, then you also make those decisions. Obviously, Christina's done a great job. If you ever met Macy or her hunky son, you'd understand she did a great job. So join us again next Monday. We've got this whole list of really fun things that we're going to talk about, with budgeting and what you don't know, and how to know the difference between income and and wealth and why it matters. So Christina, thank you so much for joining us. You know, I just love hanging with beautiful women that are talented, get it, and are so willing to share, and you always do that.
Well, thank you. It's just so fun to be here. And again, my favorite thing to talk about is money. So I just love that we can have these conversations and break it down. And, my goal, in general, but then with Terry and I, what we want to do is where we're just going to make money approachable. Let's have fun with this conversation. It's not something that women tend to sit around, the table and talk about. And that's what we wish to change, is that this can be a very approachable subject. And we're just going to learn together and grow together, no matter where you are. Let's start there and see where we can take it.
Here's an opportunity to make an investment in yourself and to change how things are going to be a year from now in less than 12 weeks. So good for you. See you next Monday, 2 o'clock Central. I'm Terry Murphy with the great Christina Wise. Have a great week.